Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. And before we get started, Mike, we're going to do things a little differently on the show today. We have some cool things coming down the pipeline here at KNWA, and they're going to be launching very, very soon. So that's a teaser for everybody at home watching. But we're going to take some breaks during this Ask Mike. We're going to calm down a little bit, take a little break, and then...
It's going to be sponsored.
It is going to be sponsored. So if you're wondering why we're going to take a few breaks in this show, that is why. And we're going to jump right into things because we have a lot of questions this week. So let's get started. Our first question is from Hill Country Razorback, who asked, did you think the baseball Hogs had a chance of winning even a game against Texas? Was winning the series a surprise, the sweep a shock? Be honest, Mike.
I'm always honest. And that's three questions. I don't know with my ADD if I can remember them all, so you may have to.
All right, I'll help you.
I did not think they would get swept. I thought they would win game two because in this stretch where they've lost series in three of them before this, the game they won in all three of those was a game where they got good pitching. They seemed to hit better when they got good pitching. And I thought, okay, you got Gage Wood, you got Gackle, and then you got whoever else, and it turned out to be Manis, that would be good enough pitching, and so they would probably score more runs. Actually, that's what happened. That was game two, and that's not how that played out. But game one is they scored a ton of runs, and they got great pitching. And the main thing was their starting pitcher went 8 innings, and nobody expected that.
Yeah.
So after that game, I went, wow, that changes everything. And I wasn't so surprised. I wasn't certain they would win game two. But because they didn't have to use much of a bullpen in game one, I felt like that put them in a better position in game two. And when I just felt like they'd get hitting and pitching in game two. So once they won game one, I thought they were going to win the series. I really did.
Okay.
The only question I had was whether or not Texas would suddenly start hitting them.
Yeah, and even into game three where it was TBA on the starting pitcher going into the week.
But the shock was I didn't think they would sweep because I looked at the game three and I said, okay, you got Beidel Shees.
You got it.
And he usually goes 4 innings and gives up 4 runs. So they're going to be down early, and then they probably won't hit very well because they don't hit well when the pitching is bad early on. And that's not what happened. It did happen that he gave up 4 runs in 4 innings, but they started scoring runs too. And they actually were down, then they came back and took the lead, but then what happened was Ben Bybee came in, and I don't think he got a fair chance there because I think he was about to get him out of that inning, and they had that snafu where Vahiva Loy ran out into shallow center field and tried to catch the ball over his back, and when the center fielder should have caught it. And so that ended up costing them 3 runs. So now Arkansas is down again, but then that's when the home run started.
Yeah.
That's when Robinette started bashing home runs, and Davalon broke out of a slump, and they were just hitting home runs and scoring runs, and wow, I was like, okay, they won. They got the sweep because of a lot of things. But when you look at the overall picture, the good thing is they had consistent hitting. Even though they only scored 6 runs in game two, that was enough because they had good pitching that day. And the pitching was better than it has been.
Yeah.
And that's how you get the sweep.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you for sure on this show when we were talking about this upcoming series, I did not think they would get a series win. I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't either. I thought, like I said, I thought they'd win one game, the game two.
Yep.
But when they won game one, I thought they would win the series.
Yeah, you could feel there was some momentum there. I definitely didn't think a sweep. Goodness gracious, that was complete shock. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this series because we have some more questions about it. And Razor Alex 88 says, the Diamond Hogs have life left in them. Yes, they do, Razor Alex. Beautiful weekend with the sweep versus the Shorthorns. Got to keep that fire burning going into the last 2 series. Despite the bad April, Diamond Hogs the first team to reach 40 wins.
Yeah, and you look at all those positives. I mean, no other team had beat Texas even more than once. They'd lost they'd lost to one team and then the other, can't remember. They lost to LSU, I think, and can't remember the other team. But nobody had beat them twice. Arkansas swept them. Arkansas is the first team to 40 wins. And if you really look at those series that they lost, at least 2 of them were winnable, real close. And I'm thinking, okay, with this sweep, they're back up there. You know, they'll probably jump back up to number 2. No, not in the national polls.
No.
One of them might have had them up there, but most of these polls still have them down at 7th. So, you know, it's like, it's good, but it's only good here. Because if you're not in Arkansas, that's what happens to Arkansas. I'm telling you, they've got to be much better than people think they are just to get any credit.
Well, I was looking at D1 baseball because they were one of the polls that obviously had Arkansas still down there, and Texas was still up there. And people were going, why hasn't Texas fallen? And they said, well, that was one series, you know, lost to Arkansas, and Arkansas had 3 series losses in a row.
That's not a series loss. It's getting swept.
Yeah, I know. And that's what people were saying. It's like, I get that Arkansas lost 3 series in a row, but that was the down period, and now you're going, okay, can they bring it back up? I mean, they'll have to prove themselves against LSU and Tennessee.
And they have to prove themselves now because there's still a lot of people that don't believe.
Oh, yeah. There's still a lot of people.
They're 7th in a couple of these polls, and these people are crazy. Look, I've watched Arkansas baseball for 50 years. This is as good a collection of talent as they've ever had on any of these teams because in this series, what you saw, the best hitting in the SEC, and they are statistically the best hitters, best defense in the SEC, and that pretty much means overall. And then their ERA was 3rd, it dropped down to 4th, but it was only like 1 percentage point. So right there virtually at 3rd. So in this series, you had it all. You had pitching, you had defense, you had offense. And why is this team being overlooked when I watch Rally Cap, for instance, on the SEC network, they seem to get it.
They do, because they said Arkansas is the most complete team we've seen.
And if they can play like they played this past weekend, they can go to Omaha and win it all. I don't know that they will. It's a matter of, can you sustain this? But there are some things coming up that look real positive. They're about to get some pitchers back, and they've got two starters now that are going longer. I think Gage Wood, if they can move him up, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
So you think, yeah, it's very exciting. It is inside the state. You get outside the state, they're not even paying attention. I mean, Georgia's up there ahead of Arkansas in some polls. They're two full games behind them in the conference. What are you talking about? And Arkansas has played Texas, you know? I mean, so, yeah, get excited if you're an Arkansas fan, but just know that outside this state, people are still going,
I go back to what Courtney Deifel said today when I asked her about the rankings, because they're, you know, number 1 in the Softball America poll this week. They were number 2 last week, and that poll rose to number 1. And she said, you know what? We could be number 1 in this poll, but we're going to be number 8 in another poll. And that's just how softball is. And I kind of go back and
it shouldn't be that way in baseball for this team. They've had one bad period, and they more than made up for it. And these meatballs can't figure it out.
But I go back to kind of her point there. I just don't think they understand how to rank the SEC baseball teams this year.
And the only thing you hope is that the selection committee is not that goofy.
No, I don't think they will
because if they are, then they're not even going to be a national seed. They'll just be a 8, 10 seed, 11 seed, and they'll get a regional. There's no way they don't get a regional, but then if they win that, they'll probably have to go to somebody else's super.
Well, the selection committee looks at that RPI, right? And that's something that they rank very heavily there. Pig Daddy Kane has some more questions about baseball. For the naysayers in the fan base, since we swept the Shorthorns, does this mean the baseball team is good again? Y'all still wanting DVH gone?
No, the people that want him gone will do what the people that want Sam Pittman gone. Whenever football does something good, they'll go hide somewhere in a corner for a while, and they'll wait for the next bad thing to happen. So look what this team has to do. They got to go to Baton Rouge, and that'll be a real test. So if they don't win that series, they lose 2 of 3, they'll be back right out, get rid of Dave Van Horn.
Yeah.
But I do believe even if they lose that series, they will win the series against Tennessee, and I think Arkansas should end up probably in 2nd place in the SEC, at least tied for 2nd. But as long as they're in that range, I don't think the Dave Van Horn haters are going to be out. It's when it looks like they're in real trouble and they might not do this or that or get sent to somebody else's regional. Although, believe me, there are people out there that don't want them to get their own regional. They're convinced that Arkansas plays better when they're somewhere else.
Well, think about the last time they didn't get their own regional.
There have been other times when they've done that. They went to Waco one year. They went to Stillwater one year. They went to Oklahoma City one year. And all I think they may have gone to Stillwater twice, but they've all gone to the College World Series coming off of those.
Yeah.
But I still think you're better off at home, and I think this team has proven they're better at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if Arkansas gets a regional and a super regional, they're going to Omaha. They won't lose here.
Ooh, that's a
They
bold
won't.
prediction right there, Mike
this
Irwin.
bunch won't.
Ooh, I like your fire there. Hog Redneck says, I give Zach Root credit for the sweep. Yeah, you've got to give him a lot of credit there. Arkansas needed to send a message right off the bat, and he did it. We ain't playing. I still can't believe that he shut Texas out for 8 innings.
Yeah, that was the big surprise, and I would agree. I mean, look, there was a lot of guys that stepped up.
Yeah.
Davalon and Robinette, and you could even say, that Gage Wood is solid again, and Gackle went several innings, and I mean, Dylan Carter pitched well. There's all these guys, but the Root thing was just so, it was when it happened, it was right off the bat. What he did with Texas is he said, hey, you're in a different place now. You're in our place.
Yeah.
And guess what's fixing to happen to you? You're not going to hit, and we're going to beat your butt. We're going to beat you bad. We're going to shut you out, and we're going to beat you bad. And so by doing that, I think he sent a message. I think it pumped his own team up. I think it freaked Texas out. I think it freaked their pitchers out.
Yeah.
I think they're measuring themselves against him because they screwed up a lot. And it just changed everything. So I agree. It started with what Root did in Game 1.
Well, he said what I wanted to do and what they told me I needed to do was set the tone of the series. Well, by goodness, he set the tone of the series. And so I definitely think having a performance like that fires the rest of the team up, made the team go, we knew how much this meant. I think it fired Gage Wood up for Game 2. He was like, I just had to keep it going.
Gage Wood is he's turned into some kind of showman out
I
there.
love him. We're going to talk
that?
about Gage Wood, but I love him because Arnold Ziffel asks, what kind of impact do you think Gage Wood will have for the remainder of the season? Hopefully a good one.
Well, he's gone 2 times out there now, and he's gone 4 innings. I think it's time for him to go 6.
Oh, yeah.
If he goes 6, then maybe what happens is Gackle can go the rest. And if he does, then that leaves you all these options on Game 3. But there's more at work here than that. Dave Van Horn and his Swatters Club thing indicated that Parker Coyle is coming back for the LSU series.
Yes, he did.
Okay, his ERA is 6 points. His ERA is 0.6. I'm sorry, not 6. 0.6. They're also talking about Hunter Dietz may be ready to come back. He's a big, giant, 230-pound left-handed pitcher that's just unhittable. And if he comes back, I mentioned Dylan Carter's looking pretty good. Fouch is looking good. Carson Wiggins may not be done. So what you could end up with is a thing as we end the regular season and head into postseason play. You've suddenly got maybe 3 or 4 arms that are available for you in the bullpen. That's going to bring about a change, I think, in the Game 3 starter.
Okay.
Because now I think there's even some talk from Van Horn that he might take Beidelshees and make him a bullpen guy.
Wow.
We're just bringing you in for 2 innings. And you take the pressure off of him. The feeling is he can throw harder if he knows he's not supposed to go 4, 5, 6 innings. Just 2 innings, I've got more steam on the baseball. So there's just options there, and Gage Wood he's somebody that really has changed this whole dynamics with the pitching staff since he came back. So he's got to continue to prove it. But boy, he looks good right now, and he said he's better than he was before he got hurt, I think it's how fresh he is.
I think so, and he looked ready to go 6 innings. I think they were being a little cautious still because I felt like he could go 6 innings in that game too.
Absolutely.
I wanted to see it. All right, we are going to take a brief break like I talked about before, but we will be right back with more of your questions. Welcome back to another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, we've had a lot of baseball questions. We're going to go right back into baseball questions because we've got a few more. And everybody's favorite question asker is back. Hopefully he's a little positive this week. Mouse Down says it was a weekend full of surprises, but to me, the biggest was the way Davalon broke out of his mini slump by tattooing the Horns' hot shot reliever. His sub-1 ERA went out the window with one swing of the bat.
Yeah, I was talking to Grant Hall, and you know, he's been in the media longer than I have. He's lived in Fayetteville since he was in the 4th grade. And he got invited to sit with the 85 team. The 85 team was at the game. They were honoring them, and it was a great idea to do that. But he was sitting up with them in those seats over the over the bullpen, down the first baseline. And he said that those guys, they talked about what was going on. They told funny stories. And I just think the whole thing, the way that all worked, and the way they just kept doing things, you know, it's just, when you have a bunch of guys like that, I think they talk to the current guys.
Yeah.
And it just made it a whole lot better. So I just think this whole thing was just working out the way it was going. You know, what was the question? I forgot the original question.
Mousetown was excited to see Charles Davalon get out of the slump.
Okay, it was Davalon.
Yeah.
Okay, so I said to Grant, and I'm texting him.
Yeah.
And I said, and at the time I was doing this, the game was tied. And I said, you know, Arkansas better either have the lead or it still be tied, because when they bring this kid in, you ain't scoring any more runs off him, because I'd watched him a couple of times this year. And he's just virtually unhittable. His ERA was .9.
Yeah.
Under 1 a game. And so I guess Grant said, okay, you seem to know about that. And then I ended up just being wrong. Because he came in and they were hitting him, and then Davalon tattoos this 3-run homer off of him, and suddenly his ERA, he ended up giving him 4 runs in that game. It went from .9 to 1.6. And he's looking around out there, he's got his little bag, and he's throwing it up and down and getting mad. That was fun to watch. So that was a biggie. That was that home run was big, because what you're doing is you're saying to probably their best pitcher, honestly. Yeah. He's been their most effective pitcher. And you're saying, hey, this is all you got? Watch what we do to you.
Yeah, and it was Charles Davalon as well, who has been in a slump. I thought that was even more poetic as well, that we were going.
I mean the dugout was just going nuts when he did that, so it was pretty good.
I love that. There were so many great moments in this Texas series, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the great moments there, because we have a couple more, but this is one of them. I love that H.L. McCamish asked this question, because at 6'3", Reese Robinette is a natural first baseman. Turns out he can hit too. 6 RBI, 2 home runs in Game 3 against Texas. Take those away and Texas wins. 49 games into the season, and he's batted 22 times. What is up with that?
Dave Van Horn explained that, and he said there's never been any question about his ability as an infielder. He can play third base. He can play first base. He's very good. He just said he wasn't consistent enough at the plate. And they thought he might leave and go to junior college.
Well, they told him. They said it was a great story, because Dave actually said, look, we think you're talented, but we don't know if we're going to play you. And so he said, maybe you go to junior college and get some experience there and come back. And he said, no.
He stayed. And he sits there all this time.
All this time.
They put him in a midweek game a week and a half ago. I think it was might have been the second of those 2 midweek games they played. And they put him at third base. He took Iredale's place. Iredale came out of the game. And so they insert him in this midweek game at third base. He played good third base. And then he got a base hit and drove in a run. I guess that gave him confidence. But in this game, 6 RBI, 2 home runs. Are you kidding me? I just hope he can keep that up. If he does, it changes the lineup a lot.
Yeah, he had, 3 doubles in that other midweek game, too? He had 3 doubles, right?
So the point is, if he can establish himself as a hitter, he's a 6'3" first baseman. Look who they've had at first base. A couple of guys that are my height. Whoa, up, ball goes over your glove. I mean, and he made a couple of really nice catches out there in Game 3. Yeah. I mean, especially one over there by the wall. So, I mean, let's hope he can continue to hit this way.
Yeah, I mean, the first game he played in, that was that midweek game. I can't remember who it was against, but it was that midweek game where he had that 3 doubles in it, and then one of them was the walk-off double where they won it in 7 innings. And so, and he was talking about that, just like, I've been ready, I've been wanting to play. I had no idea about the whole JUCO story at that moment.
Right.
And just Dave Van Horn casually drops that in, that, we told him maybe go play at the JUCO level. Nope, I'm staying. I mean, that He is a great story, big country man. I love that kid. Awesome, awesome guy to have on your team. Eddie Lynn says, when we fell behind early in game 3, I figured a sweep was out the window, but then we just started hitting home runs and we didn't stop. What happened? Texas has the best pitching in college baseball.
Well, I think Arkansas had their confidence back, but let's get real here. Texas helped them. Their pitchers walked 22 Razorbacks in that game, and they hit another 9. So that's 31 guys on base in those 3 games that didn't even get a hit. So when you got all these guys on base, you're hitting a home run. It's not a solo home run like we've been used to. It's 3 runs. It's 2 runs. And I think that's what really did it. It wasn't just that, and they, you know, we've gone through this whole hit too many home runs, don't hit enough base hits, blah, 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 blah. Home runs are nice when you've got 2 on, 3 on, because that's when you really take over a game. And they just swamped Texas in game 3 suddenly very quickly in those middle innings because they were hitting home runs, but there were multiple people on base. And that had a lot to do with Texas just going, hey, here's some gifts.
Yeah.
And I don't know what was going on that other than maybe they just lost. Maybe they were freaked out. The whole team looked like they were freaked out.
Well, I feel like they haven't played as tough of competition on the road this season as they have at home. They faced a lot of good talent at home, but Arkansas arguably is the best team that they faced on the road. And I think maybe the environment rattled them. I truly do.
Well, I was sitting there thinking in game 3 when Arkansas took the lead and then Texas came back, and keep in mind they'd only scored 1 run going into that game 3. And when they started scoring a lot of runs, I thought, well, this is over. And what I didn't like about it was, because I've been around the Longhorns and their fans since I was 12 years old, and they have this ability to just wipe out anything that is negative. And I could see them just, if they won that game, celebrating, acting like they won the series, we're leaving, you're trash, we're going now, and all that stuff. And so by beating them, sweeping them, they couldn't do that. But they'll do that anyway. They'll just act like, oh yeah, that's nothing. So I hope that they've still got to go play Oklahoma, and Oklahoma hates them. And so that might help. And then Florida, who's arguably the hottest team in the SEC right now, they continue to win even after they took 2 out of 3 from Arkansas. Florida might give them some trouble, although that's in Austin.
Yeah, we'll see. It is in Austin, which I think bodes well for Texas. But you're right, Florida, sneaky, has looked really, really good. So right now in the season, that just goes to show how tough the conference is. I mean, I really do believe that this conference is just heads and shoulders above the rest. And so we're going to answer one more question, then we're going to take another short break. Hot Dogger says, those comeback Hogs, not impressed with the game announcers, but a whale of a series win. Can we keep it going, Mike?
Okay, so he mentions a series win, so I'm going to assume that question came in after they'd won the second game. So when he's saying, can we keep it going, he's not talking about down the road. I think he's meaning in this series.
Okay.
Now, let's get back to the not impressed with the game announcers. If that indeed is when he sent this question in, and I think it is, then he's talking about the ESPN announcers, and I can't remember. I turn the sound down. I don't listen to those guys because they jabber about stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the game.
Yeah.
And they usually they talk to people, and it just annoys me because I'm trying to watch the game. So I don't know if the announcers were the same if the ESPN announcers were the same as the SEC network guys. But what I would say about that is they're on there to basically address a balanced audience. They're not there just to talk to Arkansas fans. They know Texas fans are watching, so, and just fans around the country, and especially the SEC. So they're going to be objective. If Arkansas is really handing Texas its head on a platter, they're not going to sit around and talk about that all the time. They're still going to talk about Texas being good, and they'll bounce back after this series. You just can't expect them to rub it in. I thought they were properly respectful of what Arkansas was doing.
Yeah.
But it didn't bother me that they weren't just making fun of Texas and talking about how they were getting their butts kicked, because that's not what they do. Now, the Saturday game, that was an ESPN3 game. And that's Troy Eklund, and that's Dolan. What's his name?
Brett Dolan. Yeah.
Those guys, they technically get paid by Arkansas, although it was explained to me that ESPN gives them the money that they turn around and give to them. but they are Arkansas's announcers. Now, if you watch a lot of ESPN3 like I do, some of those guys are not objective. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you may get LSU's announcers we'll see this weekend. They're kind of homerish. But these two guys aren't. They seem to understand, okay, Arkansas fans are watching us, but Texas fans are watching us too. We got to be fair to them. And so they were properly respectful. I don't really have a problem with that. If you play it straight up, and a lot of major league teams don't do that because you're announcing on the radio for that team, and so you're going to be prejudiced toward that team, and I guess that's okay. But I don't have a problem, even if it's sort of your guys. They're more familiar with you than, and Eklund played for Arkansas. He's just very balanced.
He is, yeah.
He will give credit to anybody, any place, and I don't personally have a problem with that, although I understand Arkansas fans, they want blood. they want their announcers just talk down. If these are our guys, talk down about how crummy these guys are.
Yeah, but I thought they did a great job. I think Brett Dolan, I actually enjoy listening to Brett and Troy when they call the game. I actually do enjoy that. And honestly, I didn't think the ESPN guys, I actually thought they were pretty favorable to Arkansas, more so
I
than
didn't notice
normal.
an issue.
Yeah.
But Arkansas fans do that a lot. They get mad at announcers, and I get mad at announcers.
You do too, though. I mean,
I get mad
too.
at announcers for different reasons. I get mad at announcers for jabbering when I'm watching a game and I want to know what's going on.
You also don't like the interviews they do with coaches
I
while
hate
the
that.
game is going on.
Players, coaches, I do not. I don't want to deal with that. I want to watch the game. And I also don't like this.
Okay.
And I notice this, and I'm getting picky.
Oh, no. Okay.
How many times did you notice in that Sunday game, all of a sudden we're looking at the pitcher and the batter from behind, from right field?
Right field, yeah.
And it's a wide shot.
Yeah.
You can't even hardly tell what's going on.
Yeah,
it's like,
I don't
it's
understand
like
that
the director went, "Oh, give me a wide shot back here just so it'll be different."
Yeah, I don't.
And I don't. People like that don't understand baseball. Baseball fans want to see behind the pitcher. They want to see where the ball goes. They want to be able to look at that, and they don't want a lot of fancy, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they were doing graphics and putting graphics up over stuff. And again, you want to watch the game. And I can't, if I had one thing I could say to these people that produce these games, especially the director, because he's the one that decides the shots, I would say, put yourself in the mind of somebody that goes to the game. You think a guy that's sitting there behind the first base dugout wants to suddenly wish that he was out in right field and could see the game from there? You know?
No.
You know, you're not sitting there in your mind going, "Oh, take me anywhere, take me over here in the outfield." If there's a reason for a different shot, like sometimes they'll show the pitcher from the third base side because there's a guy on first and he might be trying to pick him off, and they'll show that until he winds up and throws it. That's okay. But I like there to be a reason why you're putting a particular shot on the air.
I get
Not
that.
just, "Oh, well, we're bored with this. Let's go to this real wide shot out in right field."
Yeah, we're just going to be creative.
Because that's not creative. It's not baseball. You're not producing a movie there. You're producing a game that that people tune in to watch.
You're not producing a movie over there. I love that, Mike. That's one of your top 5 quotes for me. We're going to take another short break, but we'll be back in just a second to answer more of your questions. Welcome back to another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, we've been talking about this Texas series a lot. We've got a couple more questions on it, and I love this question from Popular Porkster because I talked about the moments in the series, and this was a moment that I don't know how many people knew that this went on there, but it was Popular Porkster brings it up. He says, "What a brilliant idea to bring the 85 team in for this series with a rare appearance by Jeff King, the only Razorback in any sport to be drafted #1. Norm and his guys brought us good luck."
Yeah, they visited with the team. Norm kind of brought them all together, and so did Dave, and there was a closeness there and all of that. But it's really cool to get some older guys, the guys that played 30 years ago or whatever, and get them to mix with guys that are here and maybe help them understand the Texas series because the 85 team played Texas all the time.
Yeah, they were in the Southwest Conference, so.
Again, I knew that Grant was up there sitting with those guys, so I texted him and I said, "Okay, have they told any funny stories?"
Okay.
And this is a quote that he sent me back in a text message. He
Okay.
goes, "The night they went to ORU and had a brawl, that sent 9 ORU players to the hospital, but no Arkansas players. We stopped playing ORU as much after that. Gary Murphy did a spot-on impersonation of Norm talking about how it wasn't Arkansas's fault. In other words, we got in this fight, but it was their fault, and we beat them up, and they had to go to the hospital.
Yep.
So it's pretty funny. And then Doug Clark, who was the batting coach on that '85 team, he said a former Miami assistant told him that the '85 team was the best college team he's ever seen. Now, you may think where would he come up with that? It was really good. No, they didn't win the College World Series. Sometimes the best teams don't. 14 players off that '85 team were drafted that year. Wow. It was over. 14. Wow. So it was a really good team, and a bunch of good guys on that team. And it was really good to get Jeff King to come back, because he doesn't come back very often.
I think there was some magic. I mean, truly having that team there must have been some extra magic at Baum-Walker Stadium.
I think it was good.
It was good. I definitely enjoyed seeing it. And we have a video over on our social media if you do want to see them being honored before one of the games this weekend. As Giles said, all right, we're going to give some love to another team here. I love what the baseball Hogs did to Texas, but don't forget about the softball ladies. They finished the regular season with 6 straight SEC Series wins, beating yet another ranked team. Go home, LS who?
Yeah. Well, the big news is they're now number 1 in this Softball America poll.
Yeah.
Baseball America has Arkansas at number 2. So these So these Americas must like Arkansas.
I thought they had them at number 3.
Maybe
they had Texas at 2.
Maybe it's 3.
I think it's 3.
They don't have them at 7th. I know that.
No, yeah.
So they moved them up to number 1 in their poll. That's not generally because they're 5th in the SEC tournament. They're number 5 seed, so that's kind of hard to be number 1 and be a 5 seed. But that's how top heavy the SEC is. They're going to get a bye tomorrow. Will not play. Mm-hmm. And then on Wednesday, they will play the winner of Georgia and Kentucky. Now, Arkansas swept Kentucky at home at the end of March. They have not played Georgia. However, Georgia is 7-15 in the SEC, and they lost every conference series they played. Oof. So you got to figure that Kentucky will win that, and Arkansas swept them. So they have a good chance, but then if they win that game, it's back to playing Oklahoma again. Oh, and Oklahoma's the team that swept them, so maybe they want some revenge.
But Oklahoma hasn't. Over the end of the season, why Arkansas jumped up in the Softball America poll is because Oklahoma hasn't looked like the Oklahoma that started the SEC slate. And so maybe that is partly because the SEC, Courtney Deifel had a very funny quote about it today. She said the SEC is always tough, but this year it's like it's on steroids. Yeah. It's on steroids. And yes,
how many different teams have been number 1 from the SEC?
Well,
like 4?
Well, look at how many teams are in the top 10. Mm-hmm. Mike, it's insane. I mean,
they just take turns knocking each other off.
Yep, they just go boom, boom, boom. Let's just switch. Let's just go around. And so I think maybe that's some of it. But goodness gracious, if you are not looking at Courtney Deifel's team this year, you have to, especially with the last 2 years.
So the question is, do they come out of this SEC tournament with a national seed? In other words, do they host then host a super regional?
How could you? I think they do.
Well, that's
good.
I
think they do.
They were in that position, 3 years ago and didn't make it? Was it 4?
They were in, they won the SEC tournament, in 2022? Was that, my years are right there?
I just remember the year when they hosted a regional and then a super. They won their regional, but then they played Texas.
That was 2022.
And they didn't go to Oklahoma City. Yeah. So maybe this is the year you get to go to Oklahoma City.
I hope so, because they have faced a gauntlet of a schedule, and I just really like this team right now. If you haven't watched them play, they are so fun to watch. And Courtney Deifel has said, what has been the secret sauce of success for this year's team, and it's that they focus on themselves. You can never count them out. They go into every game thinking they can win this game. They know that they might get beat, but they're going, nope, we're going to try and we think we have a shot in every single game. And that's why if I think they face Oklahoma again, they might win. I really do. I really think that they can beat Oklahoma.
On Friday, so.
I would love. I can't wait for that matchup. Hopefully it happens.
No, it'd be Thursday.
It would be Thursday, but don't overlook anybody. I mean, I know we don't. We say Georgia, we say Kentucky. Don't overlook them. That's all I'm saying. Ben Wiley, 2497 says the women's basketball roster only shows 3 players. Will there be any returning players? And I do have to say a little thing about this question. Ben did ask this before they updated the roster. So I think he asked this last week.
The roster is updated.
Yes.
And now there are, let's see, I wrote it down here somewhere.
13.
There are 13 players listed.
Yep.
There are 5 foreign players, 1 player from Arkansas, 2 from Oklahoma, and girls from Kansas, Georgia, Arizona, and Tennessee. And they only have about 3 players from back from, how many from
4.
last year? 4
players
back from last
returning from last year. One of them is a notable one from Arkansas, right down the road at Farmington. Jenna Lawrence is back for another season. They brought back Christina Sanchez. They brought back Danica. So, and I'm missing the 4th one that they brought back. Oh, Jada Bates. Think Jada Bates as well. So that's 4.
But she's got the women are allowed to have 15, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So she could still add 2 more.
Well, I think she's not done just yet. She told me when we sat down that she was still looking at a couple more additions, but she said we brought back 4 from last year's team. We're lucky as well that they were able to keep the 2 or 3 freshmen that Neighbors recruited, I believe 2, that Neighbors recruited. So they were able to still keep those girls on. And then she had a couple of transfers. I mean, one of the big names that she had transfer is Yvette Mayberry. You know that name, right? Mayberry,
Yep.
daughter of Lee Mayberry. So she likes her team right now. But again, when we sat down and we did this interview last week, Mike, and she told me, she kind of said, look, we're looking to win games, obviously, but we also know that the SEC is incredibly tough, and so she's building a foundation. So we'll see how it goes in year 1. I like who she has, but again, it's a foundation. So you've got to know that as well. WV Hog fan asks, have you seen anything like the 6th inning of the first LSU Arkansas softball game? Ump's taken 10 minutes to review a non-reviewable play. Honestly, has anybody seen anything like that first LSU softball game?
It's so stupid because you're asking yourself, oh, it's not just the umps at the game.
Yeah.
Because that goes to the central reviewing, wherever that's at. So you got people back there that are experts in rules and all this stuff, and you're telling me they stood around for 10 minutes and went, oh, this is not reviewable.
Yeah.
I mean, you should have known right off the bat this is not reviewable.
Even Courtney went down to her, and she was like, wait, isn't that reviewable? What are you talking
so
about?
I think maybe it was reviewable, and then they just decided it wasn't. Here's what happened. It was LSU, right?
It was LSU, yeah.
Okay. They got a girl at the plate, and she's bunting. She lays down a bunt, but then she throws the bat down, and the bat goes and hits the ball a second time and knocks it further away from Arkansas's catcher, which allowed the base runner to get to first. Now, to me, the home plate umpire should have seen that. What's he doing? You bunt, he's standing back there, you see the ball go down, boink, hits the bat goes down, hits the ball. He should have seen that, but he didn't. And now let's look at the other umpires. They don't see this. They're all standing around. They don't see this bat go down and hit the ball and knock it 3 or 4 feet further. I mean, it was just terrible.
Yeah.
So what it should have been was a foul ball, and the batter has to come back, and it's the same count. But instead, they got a base runner on, and then we go through this rigmarole of 10 minutes going, what are we doing here? And then it was like, oh, it's not reviewable.
Yeah, and Courtney I saw her, that they were going, the announcers were confused about it. Everybody was confused about why it was allowed to even go through the process.
I think you had these people, where is this review center? It used to be like somewhere like North Carolina or somewhere. You'd think it would be in Birmingham. It's the SEC, but it's not, I don't think. Wherever it is, I think what they did was they ordered like boneless wings or something and some beer, and they were doing the and then all of a sudden they go, hey, we got to have a ruling on this. Oh, gee, I don't know. That's not reviewable after 10 minutes.
I mean, come on, that game was weird in general. I mean, Bree Ellis called it the cursed game. She said it was cursed because because Matt Michael had a foot race to the ump.
Well, I think they tried to. They had a pinch runner in.
Yep, it was
and they changed the pinch runner in the middle of an at bat.
Yep, and it was
and so he notices it, says it, so they're going, yeah, right, the batter's out, and then the LSU coach comes running out there like, I'm going to start some crap, and then.
Well, yeah, they basically were trying to get to the ump first to let them know that there was an error in in their, in their cards. There was an error, like it's a paperwork error, basically,
Yeah.
right? It's a paperwork error. So he's trying to get there because he sees what's happening, and he knows if he gets there,
Okay.
he can possibly have the batter be called out, or the runner be called out. So,
Right.
which is what ended up happening in a bases loaded situation. So it was crazy, and the game was 3 hours and 7 minutes. I mean, it was just insane. That whole game. Just insane from start to finish. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we got some questions about basketball to finish off the show. Yeah, I know. Basketball questions? Yeah. We have some questions about basketball. We're going to get to those right after the short break. Welcome back to another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. And Mike, we have some basketball questions to talk about because KY Hog is back and he wants to know, even though we kind of answered this last week, KY Hog, but we'll do it again for you. How much longer until we know about Carter Knox? If he comes back, will Cal add anybody else or would that be it? Tell me something I need to know.
Okay, because he's around all these Kentucky fans. I'm sure they're giving him a lot of grief. When's the deadline to pull out of the draft?
May 28th.
Okay, so that's still a while.
Yeah, it is.
And they're on hold with some things until that happens.
Yeah.
So I know you believe there's still things that will happen, that he's not done.
Yes.
So explain that.
Yeah, so I think right now, and I said this last week to be fair, that I didn't think we would get any new information, but I felt pretty good. I still feel good, even with the attention that Carter Knox is getting. I still feel pretty good about Carter Knox returning. I could be wrong. There could be 10% of me that go, that 10% could win, right? I don't really know, but I think based on what I've heard, based on what people have told me, I feel like Carter Knox could be back. But we still won't know because, again, he's going to go through that draft process. He, Boogie Fland, and Adu Thero were all invited to the NBA Draft Combine last week. So they're going to go through that. That takes place in Chicago May 11th through 18th, if I'm right about that. I think that's the dates on that. Give or take a few days if I'm not right on that. But they will still go through that. So we're not going to know anything about Carter Knox until after the NBA Draft Combine.
They won't decide on anything else until that happens,
well,
too.
I don't think they're going to. They're looking at maybe another guy who's going through a draft process right now. I talked about him last week as well. So there's a couple of things that may happen, but they're not done yet.
And
Cal
apparently
isn't
we
done
still
yet.
want another big man.
I feel like, yeah, they could need another big man, maybe just maybe a four, another guard for sure. I think they're definitely going to bring on another guard, but they're definitely not done. Cal is just waiting because what has to happen? He needs to know, hey, am I working with Carter Knox or am I not? That's going to change things, right? And so he's waiting until this draft process a little bit. He's doing things behind the scenes to make sure that he's ready for that. But yeah, they do have to wait until the NBA Draft Combine is done, and then that deadline comes up May 28th. Do I think we'll hear something before the deadline? Possibly. I think we might hear something before that deadline, but we at least have to wait and through a couple of weeks in May. Okay? So just give him some time, KY Hog. I know the Kentucky fans are annoying you because they're Kentucky fans, but give him a second. We have one final question about basketball this week, Mike, and that's from Cajun Hog, who says, Darius Acuff tore up the Iverson Classic Saturday night, named the MVP after scoring 32 points with 11 assists. Big Bonehead Nation is that's funny. Big Bonehead Nation is at it again. I have not heard them be called that yet, Cajun Hog. They're at it again, butting into internet conversations between Razorback fans and taking shots at Acuff, living in their heads.
Okay, I looked at some of this, and here's what's going on. Right off the bat, somebody jumped in there and said, well, being MVP of that particular game was not a big deal because a bunch of guys that were supposed to be in it didn't show up.
Oh, okay.
So he was playing against meatballs, I guess is what they're saying.
Sure, yeah.
Guys that aren't very good. So that was one way they minimized that. The other thing is, another guy popped up and pointed, and you go look at the box score, but he pointed it out, that Acuff took 23 shots in the game. And he said something like, now you know why, and he named off all the guys that declared for the draft or hit the portal, all of them that aren't coming back. He said, now you know why they left, because they know they're not going to get any shots anymore with this guy coming in here. He's going to take all the shots. And then he said, I feel sorry for Wagner, Billy Richmond,
Carter Knox maybe.
Carter Knox maybe, Trevin Brazil. He said, they're not going to get the ball. This guy's a ball hog. He's just going to shoot all the time. And he may end up scoring, 30 points, but it's because he shoots 25 times.
Oh, okay.
As if Cal's just going to sit back and let him do it. It was an all-star game. You can do whatever you want in that game. It's not like comparing that to a real game. So this, again, was just their way of saying this is not a big deal.
Oh, okay.
You got to feel sorry for these people, because they will have to have lived with for a whole year the fact that they made fun of Cal all the time after he left, and then he brings a team up that at that time was really struggling, an Arkansas team, and just went up there and wiped the floor with Kentucky at their own place at Rupp, just beat them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that close.
Yeah.
And so they've got to live with that now, so they come back with their digs and barbs and stuff like that. What they should be doing is paying attention to their own team. They're doing well. They're recruiting well. They got a good coach.
Yeah.
I don't know why they care about this.
I don't know. It's the whole ex analogy. Some people are obsessed with seeing their ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend and go, oh, I hope the worst on them. I hope that they don't have a good time with whoever they get with after me, right? I hope that they're not as good as me. And then sometimes when they have an upgrade, like that can annoy them a little bit. So
they're not going to stop. We know that.
Mike says, that's done. We're done talking about Kentucky fans. They're not going to stop. They won't even stop if good, they still haven't stopped.
If he adds a couple of more players, there'll be more of how they're not any good. And there'll be an explanation for why that happened.
Oh, I'm sure. But you know what you can do? There's a great little button on Twitter. It's called a mute button. And you can just press it on any Kentucky fan that you don't want to hear from anymore. And you can just mute them. It's great. Or block them. Block them or mute them. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, folks. I do it all the time.
Very often. You know what I've been blocking lately?
What?
Have you seen these stupid Arkansas, some kind of weird websites? There are about 3 of them where they put crazy stories in there.
Yeah, where they lie about things.
They just signed the #1 quarterback in the nation.
Yeah.
Or they just
Or Big Z was offered $10 million to stay.
$20 million or something. And they're just so stupid. And then you go in there, and some people don't know, and they think they get excited, and so I blocked all of them. I don't want to read that.
Yeah, I block those people too. But be careful about those things you see on the internet, because that goes into who's posting it. Are they a reputable source? All of those things go into that. Because again, I've seen a lot of things go around on the internet right now that I'm going, okay, that's funny. That is very funny.
It occurred to me the other day that especially when you read X these days, and it's changed a lot since Musk took over, because he lets anybody pretty much post what they want. And X used to have this real strict policy about you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. So he's a free speech guy, which is fine. But reading it now is a lot like panning for gold. Have you ever watched somebody pan for gold?
Yeah, it's like
they get a big bunch of mud in there and they slosh it around and they throw it out and they do some more, and then finally they get these little tiny things that are gold, and they go, look at what I got. That's what you do. You're reading X, and about 1 out of 20 stories is like something you're interested in. The rest of it's total nonsense. You just flip by it.
Yep.
Because you're going, oh, come on, what is this?
Yeah, this is, what? This person is being offered $15 million? Oh, my goodness.
And there's a lot of politics on there where the Trump people hate the other guys, and they hate, and they're each claiming the other does this and that. And then you don't know what to believe when you look at a picture, because if it's a picture of a guy doing something, that may not really be what happened there.
Yeah.
And, so you just, you kind of look through all of it and go, oh, that's not anything. Okay, this is interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I like your panning for gold analogy.
You don't get much out of it. It takes a lot of work.
It does. It takes a lot of work to scroll through and find, wait a second, that actually might be something. Yeah, I like that. I like that panning for gold. I like that analogy. That's going to do it, though, for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer all of your questions.